and dialogue with young Muslims.
And that was a criticism that was made of the government, wasn't it, last weekend, that they didn't seem to have a strategy to engage with young people.
And I think I think it's apparent. I mean, this is a conflict where there's something like 70 nationalities, making up ISIS. Something like 7,000 foreign fighters out there in the northern part of Iraq and in Syria. A significant number from the British Muslim community travelling and being a part of it. I don't think the government is doing enough to have a conversation with young Muslims or to even understand what is going on in the minds of young Muslims, the vast majority of whom completely reject the ideas and ideals of ISIS. However, I still think that there need to be safe spaces created, that the government need to facilitate some kind of dialogue in order to understand what is going on in the minds of young Muslims, what are their grievances, and how can we possibly...
Okay, well, let's talk about this. Mohammed, you're a youth worker, and you also paid quite close attention to social media and social media trends as well. So what are young people saying to you now? What are they attracted to? Because when we see the images there that we've just seen, for example, of ISIL, ISIS, however you want to refer to them, there are horrific images of violence, of beheadings that we've seen with James Foley, horrific violence, and I don't see how it's attractive.
Well, with the social media nowadays, it's important to all people, especially youth, all over the world. And with social media, you get a large audience. So what people tend to do is potentially look for people with similar opinions. You can use a hashtag or search term or word with a similar opinion on the situation out there. So what they're trying to do is get in contact with people with similar views and potentially share images and videos that may interest them.
These are extreme views, aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that are developing. You're talking about creating a caliphate, a separate Islamic State. You're talking about murder, killing, violence, being involved in war. How do children, and they are children, how do they go from 16-year-old kids living in the UK to wanting to do that in Iraq or Syria?
I think what it is with people using social media to share their opinions and their emotions, that gives them it makes them easy to target from organisations such as ISIS. So what we need to do, the problem is the lack of information and correct knowledge going around. So people are being, they don't understand the full nature of what's happening, and because of that they get exploited with their opinions. They may be upset of what's happening in Palestine, Syria, etc. So because of that they're being targeted based on emotions. And working with youth myself, I know what it's like. What we do at Come On You All, we discuss with the youth and try and educate them with the correct knowledge from trusted sources, so that they're not targeted and exploited in such a way using social media.
Usman, you said that the government needs to talk more and engage more with young Muslims. 47,000, the government has said 47,000 pieces of terrorist material they've taken down off the internet, and yet it goes back on almost as quickly. And there's a phrase I heard yesterday, a subculture of jihadi cool. Is that fair?
It's an I heard the same phrase, and I've always said, ever since that video came out from, I think it was Syria, with the 4 or 5 young guys sat around talking about their experiences of jihad or out there fighting, it was as if it's guys sat around a campfire and almost saying, you know what, we're having a great time here, come and join us. And in fact, if you don't come and join us, there's a question mark over how much of a Muslim are you if you're not taking part.
And yet the other Muslims would say, as we've heard many people say, this does not represent.
Absolutely, it does not represent, but what I think they're trying to do is present jihad in a HD picture almost. It's a very romantic view of jihad. It is a subculture of cool jihad, if you like. It's almost like a band of brothers, if you like, out there. They're fighting for a cause that they really don't understand. And I think that's the key thing in terms of people who are 16, 18, 20, aspiring to be medics and doctors and the first British Asian Prime Ministers and things like that, finding themselves out there because they don't actually understand what Syria and Iraq is all about. These people have no business actually being out there.
And you've spoken about the attraction of jihad, but there's also the attraction of a caliphate, a separate state as well. Why?
Well, in terms of the caliphate, this is an idea, and it goes back to the succession from the Prophet Muhammad after he passed away. The leadership, the political and religious leadership of the Muslims fell to his closest companions. So the first four leaders of the Muslim community after the Prophet Muhammad were the four closest companions to him. Ever since then, Muslim empires have come up around the world, many of them competing empires. So we had the Abbasid Empire in the 750s, but in the 1200s we had the Ottoman Empire.
So it's like a Muslim utopia almost.
Well, the caliphate itself presents itself as a Muslim utopia, and these people think that they're creating somewhere where, you know, Islam is going to flourish and it's going to go back to the golden days of Islam and be a renaissance. That doesn't happen when you are being a murderous bunch of radicals, chopping the heads off innocent journalists, photographers, who Islam completely kind of forbids anything like that happening, because you can only, in a battle, attack combatants. You can't attack women, you can't attack children, you can't attack non-combatants. Sure. And when you don't have a battlefield, when you don't have any authority to fight, we're in a really, really problematic situation now. And I think the government needs, and I'll come back to my original point, needs to start having dialogue and conversation with young Muslims.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Usman Nawaz and Mohammed Hussain, thank you both for coming in.